Nobody really talks about what happens after the divorce is finalized. They talk about the process, the lawyers, the paperwork, the money, the logistics, but not about that first night when it's all officially done. When you're finally free, it's strange. You expect to feel relief, maybe a little sadness, maybe anger, but mostly you just feel nothing. You go home, maybe to a smaller place, maybe to the same one, but it's quiet now. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels hollow. You notice things you never paid attention to before. The sound of your own footsteps, the way the fridge hums, the echo of a space that used to have two voices in it. You catch yourself wanting to share something, a random thought, a piece of news, and then you remember there's no one there to listen anymore. It's not even about missing her specifically, not at first. It's about missing the habit of being known, the routine of coming home to someone, the way you used to talk without thinking about it. That part disappears overnight, and it leaves this strange kind of vacuum. People assume the worst part of divorce is the fight, the conflict, the break. But the hardest part is the stillness afterward, when the world stops spinning and you realize there's nothing left to distract you from yourself. You start noticing how much of your identity was wrapped around being someone's husband, the things you did together, the way you introduced yourself, the small daily decisions that revolved around us instead of me. And now there's just me. That word hits different when you haven't said it in years. You try to fill the silence, maybe with music, maybe with your phone, maybe with work, but none of it sticks. Because deep down you know this silence isn't just about sound, it's about absence. The absence of being needed, the absence of being seen. That's what makes it so hard. You're still alive, still functioning, but you feel invisible in your own life. Eventually you realize that silence is going to be your new companion for a while, and learning to live with it, not run from it, might be the first real step in understanding what your life is going to look like from here. After the silence sets in, something else starts to happen. A kind of confusion you didn't expect. It's not that you don't know what to do next. You just don't know who you are while doing it. For years, your life had a shape, a structure. You woke up with someone next to you, went to work knowing you were building something, a family, a future, a shared dream. Every decision had context. Every plan had a we behind it. Then one day, it's gone. The map you've been following for years, all the roads, all the destinations, it's suddenly useless. You still go to work, still pay bills, still go through the motions. But there's this strange feeling that you're watching your own life from the outside, like you're playing a role you haven't memorized the lines for anymore, and it messes with you more than you'd like to admit. Because as men, we're taught that purpose comes from providing, protecting, planning. So when that's taken away, or even just changes, it doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like failure. You start questioning everything. What am I doing this for? What do I even want now? Who am I if I'm not her husband? It sounds dramatic, but it's real. That loss of identity hits harder than the loneliness sometimes. Because loneliness at least is clear, you miss someone. But this is deeper. It's like your sense of direction just dissolves. Some guys try to fix it fast. New goals, new hobbies, new women. But it never sticks, because you're still building on the same broken foundation. You're trying to rebuild a house without realizing the ground underneath it shifted. What you eventually learn, usually the hard way, is that you can't go back to who you were before marriage. That version of you doesn't exist anymore. You've changed. You've seen too much, felt too much, lost too much to fit back into that skin. So now the work isn't about getting back on track. It's about drawing a new map entirely, one that doesn't depend on someone else to make it make sense. And that part? That's where most men get stuck. Because nobody tells you that rebuilding your life after divorce isn't about moving on. It's about reintroducing yourself to the person you were supposed to become before you got lost in being everything for someone else. Evenings hit differently after divorce. During the day, you can distract yourself with work, errands, noise. But when the sun goes down and the world slows, that's when it hits the hardest. You come home, drop your keys on the counter, and realize there's no one waiting. No smell of dinner, no background conversation, just quiet. You turn on the TV, maybe scroll through your phone, but it all feels like filler. Something to drown out the fact that the day's over and you didn't really share it with anyone. The hours stretch. You notice how long the nights actually are when you're not spending them with someone else. You try to fill them. Maybe you go to the gym, hit the bar, talk to someone online, But no matter what you do, there's this low hum of emptiness underneath it all. It's not just loneliness, it's the realization that you no longer belong in the rhythm of someone else's life. When you were married, even if things weren't good, there was still a pattern. Dinners, conversations, arguments, routines. You were in something. Now, you're just orbiting. Floating between moments, trying to figure out where your life fits again. You might start telling yourself you're fine. You might even believe it for a while. But that quiet, that deep, slow ache always shows up when everything else stops. It's like a mirror you can't avoid. It shows you all the things you never dealt with, all the parts of yourself you've been ignoring because you were busy being someone's husband. And that's the hardest part of the evenings, not the loneliness, but the confrontation. You're forced to face the version of yourself that got buried in compromise, in comfort, in routine. And at first, you don't even know if you like him. Some men start chasing distractions just to avoid that feeling. New relationships, constant plans, anything to fill the space. But no matter how many people you meet or how many things you do, the emptiness doesn't leave. It just waits. It waits for the night you finally stop running and realize this is where you are now. Alone, uncertain, but still here. And that's where healing quietly begins. Not with someone new, not with a new plan, but with the acceptance that these empty evenings are part of rebuilding your life. Because eventually the silence stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like space you can finally fill with something that's real, something that's yours. After a divorce, you start to notice how differently people treat you. At first, your friends check in. They ask how you're doing, maybe take you out for a drink, maybe offer a couch if you need it. But after a few weeks, maybe a month, the calls slow down. The texts fade. Life moves on for them, even if it hasn't for you. Some friends try to cheer you up. They say things like, "You'll bounce back," or "Now you can do whatever you want." They mean well, but it hits wrong. Because you're not celebrating freedom, but you're grieving a life that doesn't exist anymore. Others just avoid it completely. They don't know how to handle your new reality. Maybe they don't want to take sides, or maybe your pain reminds them how fragile their own life is. So they keep the conversation light. Sports, work, random stuff. But never the thing that's really there. And then there are the ones who treat you like you've joined some club. They'll say, "Welcome to the single life, man," like this is some exciting new chapter. But divorce at 35 isn't the same as being single at 25. You're not out here trying to relive your 20s. You're trying to understand what just happened to your 30s. You start to realize that most people don't actually know how to sit with pain, especially men. They either try to fix it or ignore it. But what you really need is someone who can just sit across from you and say, "Yeah, this sucks. I get it." No solutions, no silver linings, just acknowledgement. That's rare. And when you find it, maybe one friend, maybe an older guy who's been through it, it's like finding oxygen again. Because being seen in your pain doesn't fix everything, but it keeps you from disappearing inside it. Divorce has a way of clearing your social circle. The people who were there out of convenience fade. The ones who can handle your honesty stay, and as painful as that is, it's necessary. Because you learn that real connection isn't built on comfort. It's built on truth. The truth that life fell apart. That you're not okay yet. That you don't have the answers, but you're still showing up. And sometimes that's all a friend needs to do. Just sit beside you in the wreckage and remind you that you're not the only one who's ever had to start over. One of the hardest adjustments after divorce isn't just losing your partner, it's realizing how different you look to the world now, especially to women. Before, you were taken, safe, stable. You had a place in the social order. Now you're single again, but not in the way you used to be. You're not that carefree guy in his 20s looking for adventure. You're the man with a story, and people can sense it even before you tell them. When you start dating again, it's awkward. You think you're ready, but deep down, you're still carrying pieces of your old life. You bring caution where you used to bring curiosity. You hold back more. You measure every word, every move, because you've already seen what love can cost. And women feel that. Some are kind about it. They respect the honesty, the maturity. Others see it as baggage. They want the easy version of connection, not the kind that comes with history and healing. And that stings because you start wondering if maybe they're right, if maybe you are broken or too late or too complicated. It's strange how quickly confidence turns into self-doubt. You start comparing yourself to younger guys, to people who seem lighter, freer, untouched by loss. But what they have in youth, you now carry in experience. You know what it means to show up, to stay, to try. You've failed, sure, but you've lived deeply. And that counts for something. The hardest part is learning to see yourself the way you used to, as someone worth choosing. Because after divorce, you start to believe that being left means being unworthy. You replay old arguments, old regrets, wondering what you could have done differently. And even when someone new shows interest, there's a voice in the back of your head whispering, "Don't get too close." You know how this ends. But here's the truth. Not every connection has to end in disaster. Sometimes it's just different now. You date slower, you listen more. You don't fall for the fantasy, you look for the reality. And that's not cynicism. That's growth. You start realizing that you don't need someone to complete you anymore. You need someone who can meet you where you are, not who you were. That shift from needing to be chosen to learning to choose is what changes everything. Because once you stop chasing validation, you start building something more solid, self-respect. And that's the thing about men after divorce. You might lose the way women used to see you, but you gain something more valuable. The chance to see yourself clearly for the first time in years. At some point, the noise dies down. The texts slow, the distractions stop working, and the nights don't feel as sharp anymore. Just quiet. That's when you realize this is it. This is your life now. And as uncomfortable as it feels, you have to learn how to live it. Being alone after divorce isn't like being single in your 20s. Back then, solitude felt like freedom, an open road. Now it feels like standing in the ruins of something that used to mean everything. You're not starting from zero, you're starting from what's left. At first, you'll do anything to fill the space. You'll pick up new hobbies, reconnect with old friends, maybe even start dating again just to feel a spark. But eventually, you hit a wall. Because the truth is, you can't rebuild a life until you've faced what broke inside you. You start learning little things again. How to cook for one without feeling like it's sad. How to sit through a quiet weekend without needing to escape it. How to come home to an empty place and not immediately reach for your phone. And somewhere in that stillness, something shifts. You begin to see that being alone isn't a punishment. It's a reset. It gives you space to understand what you actually value, what kind of man you've become, and what kind of man you still want to be. You realize how much of your life used to revolve around someone else's moods, needs, and expectations. You were always reacting, fixing, accommodating, adjusting. Now, there's no one to do that for. And at first, that feels pointless. But then you realize this is where you start defining yourself again. It's not glamorous, it's not inspirational. It's just a slow, quiet process of learning how to stand on your own. There are moments when you'll feel proud of it, making dinner, organizing your space, actually enjoying your own company. And there are nights when it still hits you, that wave of loneliness that shows up out of nowhere. But that's part of it too. Healing isn't a straight line, it's a series of small moments where you choose to stay present instead of running back to what's familiar. Over time, you start to like the peace. You start to appreciate that no one's judging your choices, that you can wake up and build your days around what matters to you. That's when you know you're really healing. Not because you've moved on, but because you've stopped trying to escape yourself. It's not about learning to live without someone. It's about finally learning how to live with yourself. There's no big moment when things suddenly turn around. No light bulb, no breakthrough, just small shifts. Barely noticeable at first. You start sleeping better. You start eating like you care again. You wake up one morning, look around, and realize your life doesn't feel like a stranger's anymore. That's the slow rebuild. It's not exciting, and it's not supposed to be. It's the quiet process of becoming solid again. You stop living like everything has to mean something. You stop comparing your life to what it used to be. You just do the next right thing. Go to work, clean the kitchen, get outside, call a friend, make plans. Simple things. But they add up. At first, it feels mechanical, like you're going through motions you don't believe in. But one day, you notice you actually enjoy the routine. You look forward to your morning coffee. You take pride in your space. You care about how you spend your time. It's not happiness exactly, it's steadiness. You start to see that life isn't waiting for you to feel better before it keeps moving. It already has. And that realization hurts for a second, but it also frees you. because it means you don't have to chase the past anymore. You can build something new without apologizing for it. You might start trying things you never had time for before. Learning a skill, traveling, fixing something in yourself that you ignored for years. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you finally have the space to grow again. There's a strange peace that comes with that. You start to feel like you're in control of your life again. Not perfectly, but enough. You can make decisions without second-guessing yourself. You can say no without guilt. You can sit in silence and not feel like it's swallowing you whole. And then, almost quietly, the anger fades. The regret softens. The what-ifs stop running on a loop. You start remembering the good parts of your marriage without needing to rewrite the ending. You accept that some things just ended because they had to. That's when you know you've crossed a line, not into some grand new chapter, but into acceptance. The kind that doesn't announce itself, but settles into you like calm weather. You look back and realize that the man who started this process, the one lost, angry, empty, wouldn't even recognize this version of you. You're not better than before. You're just more honest, more grounded, more aware of what actually matters. And maybe that's what rebuilding really means. Not getting back what you lost, but finally becoming someone who can live without needing everything to stay the same. Eventually you stop waiting for the big comeback. You realize there's no dramatic redemption arc coming. No perfect relationship. No moment where everything suddenly makes sense again. Life just continues. And at first, that sounds depressing. But over time, it becomes comforting. Because you see that peace isn't something that arrives. It's something you grow into. After divorce, there's this pressure from friends, from family, from yourself, to move on, to rebuild, to prove that you're okay. But somewhere along the way, you understand that being okay doesn't mean being finished. It means being able to live with the mess, the cracks, the unfinished corners of your story. You start accepting that not every question gets answered, that not every pain completely heals, that some parts of you will always miss what used to be, not because you want it back, but because it shaped you. And that's all right. You stop needing closure from everything and everyone. You stop replaying the old mistakes, the old words. You learn to hold both truths at once, that you tried your best and that it still ended. There's something powerful in that kind of acceptance. It's quieter than forgiveness, softer than healing. It's just peace, the kind that doesn't demand anything from you. You start living slower. You appreciate the small things again, your own space, your routines, the simplicity of days that don't revolve around conflict or proving something. You learn to find meaning in ordinary moments, the coffee that tastes right, the song that makes sense again, the sunset you actually stop to look at. You realize that your life didn't end when your marriage did. It just changed shape. And the man you've become through all this, the one who's faced himself, rebuilt his footing, learned how to be alone, that man is stronger than he's ever been. Not because he's healed completely, but because he's honest about what he carries. And that honesty, that quiet self-awareness, is what finally gives you peace. You're not waiting for the next chapter anymore. You're just living this one fully. Unfinished. Imperfect, but real. And maybe that's what life after 35 is supposed to be. Not a second chance, but a truer one. So when you look at your life now, don't see what's missing. See what survived. See what's still standing. See you. Because that's where the story actually begins again.